When 18-year-old Brant John publicly forgave Amber Geiger for his brother's death, he made it clear that he was speaking for himself. Still, many could not understand this act of grace. Even some Christians were conflicted.
I forgive you, and I know if you go to God and ask him, he will forgive you.
Those words came about a year after Dallas police officer Amber Geiger killed his brother, Botham John, in his own apartment. After working a long shift, she had somehow mistaken John's apartment for hers and shot him because she says she was afraid. John's little brother then went even further.
But I love you just like anyone else. I don't even want you to go to jail. I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please? Please?
Yes.
When we watch Brant and Jean offer forgiveness in that courtroom, we're watching God enter the room. Because forgiveness like that is not a human act.
It doesn't sell.
Pastor Bill Haley leads Coracle, a ministry which focuses on spiritual development and action. Coincidentally, his Virginia property houses an old slave graveyard. Haley says racism led to death back then and today. While Haley saw the act as beyond honorable, some were infuriated.
Because black people are always being asked to forgive. And it's a lot to forgive. In fact, I think the black church is the teacher for the country on what Jesus meant when he said, forgive other people. They've had a lot of practice.
I think too often, particularly in conservative Christian spaces, we can be very forgetful of the 500-year history of our country.
Minister David Bailey specializes in racial reconciliation. He says an expectation for blacks to forgive goes back to slavery. On top of that, he says justice isn't just.
If that black man killed the white police officer because he got confused about where he was, that was not going to be a thing. Like, that brother was going to go to jail for the rest of his life, might have got the electric chair.
In this case, the judge sentenced Geiger to 10 years in prison.
10 years seems merciful. It seems so hard to have a police officer suitably punished for an action that is egregious and clearly over the line.
For Christians, this situation and others like it present a challenge.
You got to see both the sin and the effects of sin, the consequences of sin, but then you also have to see the opportunities for grace and forgiveness in God.
The world saw another example in 2015 after Dylan Roof killed 9 people at a black church in Charleston, South Carolina. Days later, family members offered forgiveness.
Took something very precious away from me. I would never talk to her ever again. I would never be able to hold her again. But I forgive you.
It's not something Marquise Jefferson wanted to do in October of last year.
I don't want no hug.
After an officer in Fort Worth, Texas, shot and killed his daughter, Tatiana Jefferson, in her own home in front of her nephew, Jefferson made this declaration.
That's my one and only daughter. I'll never forget this.
Sadly, Jefferson died just 1 month after his daughter was killed. He died from a heart attack, literally a broken heart. Bailey says Brant John's offer of forgiveness was more for him than the officer.
For that brother to walk around with unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. And so, I mean, that brother needed to be free. So he did that for him, you know, and he did that out of his relationship with God.
Justice! Now!
Unforgiveness is not the answer. Not showing grace is not the answer. But exercising grace and exercising forgiveness without truth is also not the answer.
Of course, from a legal perspective, whether or not a person receives the grace of forgiveness has nothing to do with how they're punished, but it can make a difference in the